Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're looking into something different. We're examining sources, documents really, that detail how certain mysteries how they refuse to be solved.
Right. We're digging into the facts, the cold, hard facts of cases where the truth was, perfectly hidden or maybe destroyed by chaos, or sometimes the evidence just didn't make sense with the science they had back then.
Yeah, our goal isn't just to retell the stories. We want to explore maybe the procedural issues, the psychology behind it all, the historical context that allowed these specific events to stay unsolved, leaving these haunting questions.
Exactly. We're talking about everything from, potential assassinations to calculated obsessive torment. We've got 4 really disturbing journeys for you today, and they all hinge on that sheer terror of not knowing, of the incomplete picture.
Okay, let's start with one that's it's a masterclass in psychological torture, and it really shows a criminal's absolute need for control. We're heading to Anaheim, California, 1980, the disappearance of Dorothy Scott.
And what's really crucial here, this crime didn't actually end when she vanished.
Right.
Dorothy Scott, she was a single mother. And for months before she disappeared, she'd been getting these calls, really threatening calls from someone deeply disturbed.
What kind of threats?
Well, it wasn't just vague stuff. He specifically told her he'd cut her into pieces so her body would never be found. I mean, that level of graphic detail, that planning, it suggests something more than just random anger. It points towards a deep-seated psychopathy.
And the fear wasn't distant. He wasn't just calling randomly. The sources say he would, describe what she was wearing.
Yeah.
Or what she was doing at that moment. It proved he was watching her closely, constantly.
That's the terrifying part, that constant surveillance.
Yeah, knowing that someone has eyes on you, your daily routine. It makes her trying to prepare, taking karate lessons, thinking about a handgun. It must have felt almost pointless. She knew she was being watched.
She must have been living in just a constant state of dread. Then comes the night she vanished, May 28th. She was actually at the hospital ER with 2 colleagues.
Cam Head and Conrad Boston.
That's right. Conrad had an infected spider bite, pretty serious apparently. Dorothy went to get her car to pick them up from the entrance, leaving them inside for a moment.
And this is where it gets really unsettling and deliberately confusing, it seems. Pam and Conrad see her car coming towards them.
But it's going too fast.
Yeah, a little too fast, the reports say. Then the high beams flick on, blinding them for a second.
Right, man.
The car just speeds past them, out onto the main road. And Dorothy, she was gone, just like that.
Vanished. And shortly after midnight, about 10 miles away in Santa Ana, her car's found, abandoned, and on fire.
So the fire, that destroyed any potential evidence inside the car, right? Fingerprints, fibers, anything the killer might have left.
Precisely. It suggests planning. But the abduction, the murder, that was only phase 1 for this person.
This is where it gets almost unbelievable, the sheer cruelty.
Yeah.
This wasn't just about killing her.
No, this individual seemed dedicated to maximizing the suffering of her family. For the next 4 years, almost every Wednesday, Dorothy's mother got a phone call during the day.
From the same person.
Same voice, described as a low, gruff male voice, and the question was always the same agonizing thing, is Dorothy there? Followed by, I've got her, I killed her.
Oh my God, every week.
Yeah.
For 4 years.
Almost every week. They tried tracing, recorded the calls, but back in the early 80s, tracing took time. He never stayed on the line long enough. The technology just couldn't pinpoint it that fast.
So his priority wasn't escaping, it was the torture, the sustained torture.
Pure sadism focused entirely on causing grief. A killer who just commits the crime and disappears might be driven by opportunity or specific rage at the victim. This person got long-term satisfaction purely from the family's suffering. Dorothy was gone, but he still had total control over their emotional lives.
That sustained contact.
Yeah.
4 years. It speaks volumes about the motive. It's chillingly calculated.
Absolutely. It's about power and inflicting pain long after the initial act.
And then the call stopped.
Abruptly. In mid-1984, that's when her remains were finally found. A construction worker stumbled upon some bones off Santa Ana Canyon Road. Partial remains of pelvis, arm bones, thigh bones, a skull.
How did they identify her?
Dental records confirmed it was Dorothy, and they found her watch with the remains. It had stopped at 12:30 a.m. on May 29, 1980, likely the time she was killed.
So the calls stopped when the body was found, but there was one last twist, wasn't there?
The final act of, Psychological warfare. On the very day the newspapers reported that Dorothy's body had been found and identified, her family got 2 more calls. Same voice, same question. Is Dorothy there?
Unbelievable. Just ensuring they knew he knew. Her parents passed away, never knowing who did it, who tormented them for all those years.
A truly horrifying case of sustained obsession, and tragically, completely unpunished.
Okay, let's shift gears now from that kind of raw, obsessive cruelty to a mystery that's defined by its precision, almost professional secrecy. We're going to Adelaide, Australia, 1948, the case known as the Somerton Beach Man.
Ah, yes, the Tamam Shud Case. This one is, like you said, almost clinical in its mystery. A man is found on Somerton Beach, propped up against a seawall, looks almost casual.
But he's dead, and he's immaculately dressed, full suit, pristine shoes, which is odd for a beach setting.
Right. And the immediate red flags for investigators: no wallet, no money, zero identification. Nothing.
But it's the details, isn't it? The deliberate erasing of identity, like all the name tags from his clothes.
Yeah.
Carefully cut out.
Exactly. That's not something you see in a typical accidental death or even most suicides. That's methodical. Someone actively removing identification. There was one tiny potential clue, though, a pocket repaired with this very specific, unusual orange thread.
In the autopsy, just added more questions.
Yeah. Complete contradictions. Physically, all the signs pointed to poisoning a distended liver, tiny pupils, blood pooling strangely, spleen 3 times its normal size, classic signs of certain fast-acting toxins. But the toxicology reports found absolutely nothing. No poison detected in his system at all.
How's that possible?
Well, it immediately suggested either a very rare poison, something undetectable back then, or maybe something that metabolized incredibly quickly. The kind of thing you might associate with, well, intelligence agencies, especially in that Cold War era.
And he was physically unusual, too.
Yes. His calf muscles were described as extremely pronounced, like a dancer's or maybe an athlete's. And the shape of his feet led one expert to suggest he often wore pointed, high-heeled shoes, maybe ballet, maybe something else entirely. It was just odd.
Then, months later, they find his suitcase.
4 months later, yeah. Left at the Adelaide train station's cloakroom. Inside, more strange items. A table knife modified into a point, a stencil kit used by merchant seamen, some clothes, and crucially, a spool of that same unique orange thread used on his pocket repair.
So the repair was definitely his. What about the clothes? Any names?
Some clothes had the name Keen or T. Keen on them, but police pretty quickly decided this was likely deliberate misdirection, a dead end.
Okay, but the biggest clue, the one everyone remembers, came from the body itself, right?
The biggest twist, yeah. Investigators re-examined the man's clothes and found a tiny hidden pocket, like a fob pocket, sewn into the waistband of his trousers. Inside was a small, tightly rolled piece of paper.
On it.
2 words, printed, Tamam Shud. It's Persian. It means it is ended, or it is finished.
Where did it come from?
They figured out it was torn from the very last page of a specific edition of a poetry book, the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam. It's a fairly rare edition.
So it's a suicide note, maybe? It is ended.
That was one theory. But then 8 months after the man's death, the actual book turns up.
The book the fragment was torn from.
Where? Randomly found in the back of a car, apparently tossed into the glove box near Somerton Beach. And inside this book, under UV light, police found faint pencil markings on one page. It looked like 5 lines of capital letters. A code.
A code. Was it ever cracked?
Never definitively cracked. Numerous attempts by naval intelligence, cryptographers. Nothing conclusive.
Okay, so let's piece this together. No ID, tags removed, untraceable poison suspected, a final message, it is ended. A secret code in a rare book. It does start to sound like something beyond a simple suicide or murder.
It really points towards espionage, doesn't it? The late 1940s, the start of the Cold War. This fits the profile of maybe a spy, an agent, careful identity erasure, possibly assassinated with an undetectable substance, or perhaps took his own life using one. The code, the specific book. It all screams clandestine activity, maybe a failed mission, a compromised agent.
And because they couldn't identify him, what happened to the body?
They actually embalmed him and eventually buried him in a plot sealed with concrete. The idea was to preserve the body, the evidence, hoping future technology might one day identify him or the cause of death.
And the final weird detail.
For about 30 years after his burial, mysterious flowers would periodically appear on his grave. Someone was remembering this perfectly anonymous man, a quiet, consistent vigil.
Chilling. Okay, from that kind of cold, calculated mystery, let's go to something born out of pure chaos. Woodward, Oklahoma, 1948. The disappearance of 4-year-old Joan Gaycraft.
This story is heartbreaking, set against the backdrop of utter devastation. The 1948 Woodward tornado was catastrophic. It killed 185 people, basically flattened parts of the town. Joan survived the storm itself.
But her family didn't escape unscathed.
No. Tragically, her mother was killed in the tornado. Her stepfather was critically injured. The whole infrastructure, hospitals, everything was overwhelmed.
So where was Joan?
She and her half-sister, Jerry, were taken to the hospital basement for safety. It was basically a makeshift shelter, crammed with injured people, refugees, frantic staff. Just chaos. Sensory overload, organizational breakdown.
A perfect cover for something sinister.
Exactly. Sometime during that chaotic night, 2 men show up in the basement. They're dressed in what looked like army uniforms. They immediately ask for Joan. By name.
By name, so they knew who they were looking for.
Precisely. This wasn't random. They knew her name, knew she'd likely be there among the survivors. They told the overwhelmed staff they needed to take Joan to another hospital, claiming her injured stepfather was there and asking for her.
And Joan. She was only 4.
She actually protested, didn't want to leave her sister, Jerry. But the men, looking official in their uniforms, managed to convince the staff. They even promised they'd come back for Jerry soon.
But they didn't.
No. They walked out with Joan, and she was never, ever seen again.
The horror of that.
Yeah.
Using the chaos of a disaster. And the uniforms gave them authority.
In a crisis like that, people often trust uniforms, authority figures, without question. The kidnappers exploited that vulnerability perfectly.
What's really disturbing, though, is Woodward was a small town back then, right? Where people generally knew each other.
Exactly. That's the chilling detail. In this tight-knit community, nobody recognized these 2 men. Yet they knew Joan's name, knew where to find her amidst the chaos.
So they either came in from outside specifically to get her, which is terrifying in itself.
Or they were locals who somehow got uniforms and knew who had been orphaned or separated. Either way, it was targeted. They knew exactly who they were taking, just vanished into the aftermath.
Utterly heartbreaking. Okay, our final story today deals with something different. A medical mystery. A plague that resulted in a truly nightmarish existence for its survivors. Encephalitis lethargica.
The sleepy sickness. A really baffling epidemic. It appeared suddenly around 1916, spread globally, and then just disappeared around 1928. Millions were affected worldwide.
What did it do?
The outcomes varied drastically. About a third of the people who caught it died pretty quickly. Another third recovered, but many were left with severe, permanent neurological damage, kind of like Parkinson's disease.
And the last third?
That's the most disturbing group. They ended up in this state, often called post-encephalitic syndrome. Essentially, they became frozen.
Frozen, like physically.
Yes, plunged into this profound state of akinetic mutism. They couldn't move, couldn't speak, couldn't respond to anything, but they were awake, conscious, trapped inside their own bodies for years, sometimes decades, like living statues.
Awake, but unable to move. That sounds like a nightmare.
It's hard to even comprehend. The neurologist Dr. Oliver Sacks wrote famously about this in his book Awakenings. In the late 60s, early 70s, he discovered that the drug L-Dopa could temporarily bring some of these patients back.
Back to lucidity.
Yes, back to being able to move, speak, interact. And there are accounts of what it was like being trapped. They were harrowing.
Can you give an example?
One patient Sacks called Miss R described her state not just as being physically stuck, but as a kind of mental prison. She said she dreamed she was imprisoned in an inescapable castle, but the castle was her own body. She felt like a sentient statue made of stone, locked inside herself, fully aware. An inescapable nightmare, she called it.
That's horrifying, just conscious inside a body that won't respond.
And Sacks wrote about the profound psychological impact when these patients woke up with L-Dopa. Their reactions were complex. Some seemed to accept the lost decades with this quiet, mournful dignity.
But not all of them.
No. Others were filled with this incredible rage, anger about the years, the life that had been stolen from them by this mysterious illness. They wanted, as Sacks put it, indemnification, compensation for their stolen lives.
It raises such a heavy question. What do you owe someone whose life was essentially paused, but they were aware it was paused? Conscious witnesses to their own lives being stolen away.
A terrifying thought. And the disease itself just vanished, leaving these shattered lives behind.
So we've covered 4 incredibly unsettling cases today. Each one a study in, well, failure. Information failure.
Right. Dorothy Scott's Stalker exploited the limits of technology at the time. The the Somerton Man, his identity erased by what looks like professional tradecraft.
Joan Gaycraft, taken under the cover of absolute chaos following a natural disaster.
And the victims of encephalitis lethargica, their lives stolen by a biological agent that disappeared as mysteriously as it arrived, leaving behind people trapped in a waking nightmare.
These cases really highlight how some mysteries persist, not because nobody cared, but because the circumstances, the methods used, or just the sheer chaos, perfectly countered the ability to find answers at the time.
Or exploited the social fabric itself, like the trust in uniforms during the Woodward tornado.
Yeah. These are dark, unsettling stories, and they're stark reminders, aren't they? Reminders of the unexplained horrors that can exist just beyond what we know or can prove.
It makes you think, what other truths remain hidden simply because we haven't found the right key, or because the evidence was just too perfectly erased? It's a chilling thought to leave you with.
Absolutely. If these dark stories, these unsolved mysteries have captured your attention, and maybe you want to hear more unsettling truths, well, we'd appreciate it if you hit that like button.
Yeah, and share this deep dive with others who might be interested in these kinds of chilling cases.
And most importantly, please subscribe to our channel, Horror Docs. We'll be back with more terrifying tales.
Until next time, consider what other secrets the dark might still be holding.